Our film opening, Finding Julie, is an example of the rom-com hybrid genre, containing many of the common conventions of other films of this genre, such as About Time, Love Rosie, and Love Actually. The typical rom-com conventions can include awkward encounters between love interests, usually a love chase, and an incompatible couple. Like raw media products, we have tried to tell a story from our opening that follows these three conventions. During the planning and research stage for our movie opening, we looked into a series of similar products, one being 500 Days of Summer, a successful romance film about two people who work in the same building, and a status imbalance between them. This was our main inspiration for our movie, and we incorporated some of the ideas in our film. The elevator scene in this film was similar to the elevator scene in our film, Finding Julie, where there is an awkward encounter between the two characters. When comparing the elevator scene with that of 500 Days of Summer, we managed to mimic parts we felt necessary and didn't keep it exactly the same in order to maintain the comedy aspect of our film. In terms of sound, we added a happy, jolly track to fit in well with the rom-com genre. Inspiration for this came from the rom-com The Devil Wears Prada, where it opens with an exciting, happy song called Suddenly I See. As we couldn't use copyrighted products, we found our soundtrack A Beautiful Life on a royalty-free website. Like other typical romantic comedies, we tried to portray our protagonist as a happy-go-lucky guy who has neither luck or girls by his side. This was to achieve the likeable characters that the audience feels sorry for and roots for him to win the girl of his dreams. Our main character, Christian, was inspired by the character Tim from working titles About Time, and through our protagonist's clumsy personality, we believe we have successfully achieved the role.
In our film opening, we have represented many different social groups, not only through conforming to common social stereotypes, but also by subverting them for a purpose. Stereotypes attached to gender have both been subverted and been conformed to in our media product. We have the male protagonist who chases a love interest, which follows social stereotypes and can be called the norm, but this gives power to the love interest and makes her more dominant over the protagonist. From this, our film opening perceives a woman to be the dominant character. However, with the antagonist introduced at the start, we can actually see that even though we have portrayed him as a character that the audience may not like, by giving him a negative representation, he still carries power in the scene because of his social status and the way he gives more attention to his work life than his own girlfriend. Ultimately, this giving a hierarchy of status and power, with the protagonist at the bottom as he has a lower social status than the other two characters. Although the love interest and the antagonist have the same social status, just because the antagonist is male, this gives him the dominant role. We did it in this way so that through character we would be giving a negative but true representation of how social groups are in today's society, where women of the same social status as men are still treated unequally. Costume, which falls under mise-en-scène, also helps to reinforce social status, where Julie and Jonathan are both wearing suits, which connote they are equal and of the same status, where Christian is more casual in the way he dresses, even though he is still in formal attire, representing he is still of a high status, but not as high as Julie and Jonathan. At the start of the film opening, we tried to give a positive representation of all different social groups in London through the different establishing shots. This was to ensure that from all different characters, and straight away from the start of the film opening, we could establish and build upon a happy and cheerful atmosphere so that it could also fit alongside our rom-com genre.
Since our research and planning, we have decided that Universal's working title films would be the best to distribute our film. This is because our movie is a British romantic comedy, which is what working title films are highly known for because of their films such as About Time, Love Actually, and Bridget Jones's Diary. These are successful rom-coms distributed by this institution, and we felt that if we wanted our movie to be as successful, working title films would be able to help us do so. In terms of distribution, working title films has the backing of the global conglomerate Universal, which would mean that it could be used for financial support. Not only that, but it would also help in terms of audience, as fans of rom-coms by working title films would fit with the target audience for our film, which would in turn make our film more successful and more popular. This is because it should live up to the expectations of working title films past rom-coms in terms of characters, location and storyline. Also, we were inspired by working titles male roles, such as Tim in About Time, and also roles played by Hugh Grant in other films. We believe that working title films would be interested in distributing our film because of the similar conventions which make up their films, which we believe that ours follows.
Our product features the romance comedy genre. The type of audience our product would best fit would be an audience aged from 60 to 40, male or female, as the comedic side of the film would attract to a younger as well as an older audience. We then have the romance side of the film, which will target from ages 24 and above, as this side of the genre will catch the eyes of couples or possibly even people that just enjoy rom-com style films itself. This product has a wide range of audience, as this is a hybrid, which is two genres in one, which has an advantage of widening its audience. We have tried to keep a balance of the comedic side of the film as well as the romance side. Our character Christian was designed oddly to create the atmosphere of humour which would appeal to the comedic side of the audience. Christian had spilt ketchup all over his trousers whilst eating a sandwich on his lunch break. We had done this to introduce his character to be quite clumsy. On the other hand, we have the romance side where Julie and her almost perfect boyfriend are taking a walk on a nice afternoon down the Westminster Pier. This was where Christian sees Julie for the first time and his eyes almost fall for her. This scene created attraction for the romance type of audience. Overall, we have managed to pull together a balance of the two genres in the opening scene, which therefore means that our audience for our product would be unisex and any ages from 60 to 40. Also any ethnicity, as our characters all have different backgrounds. In order to attract the audience that we needed, we had to find out what our audience would like to see within a rom-com, so we had decided to create a questionnaire. This has helped to influence our work greatly. For example, we had found out that 6 out of 9 people prefer rom-com films to be set in the city around big landmarks, tourist attractions, or anywhere in the actual city of London. We had also done some research for other rom-com films, for example, About Time. This film was set in Cornwall, London, and also had a short scene set at Abbey Road, which is famous for its history. From this research, we had gathered that audiences like to see films set in a location which has large attractions or are easily identifiable. To attract the audience that we wanted, we had to listen to what they like to see in a rom-com and insert it into our film opening, whilst also sticking to our story, however keeping our audience satisfied at the same time. Moreover, we had attracted our audience by designing a storyboard where the audience would actually be able to see sequences of the movie within a small frames and descriptions. We had designed a draft firstly, then after our research, created a finalized version. The research from our audience showed that 7 out of 9 people would rather see The Guy Meets the Girl, where we had used this convention when Christian squeezes his way into the lift with Julie. In order to create a great product which attracts our style of audience, we use conventions of the rom-com genre. To find the audience for our product, we need to do plenty of research, such as watching romance comedy films to see what their audiences are like. Also create a questionnaire to identify who and what type of people like to watch these type of films. Unfortunately, we did not gather enough data from our questionnaire. So in order for us to gather further more research, we looked at the conventions of the genre that an audience would like to see. For example, the geeky guy. We had decided to use this in our film opening. Our character Christian played the role of the geeky guy. We specially dressed him into an odd-looking person to attract more attention to this character.
Throughout the process of making our movie opening, we used and developed our skill of different software and hardware. For the use of hardware during the production process, we used a Nikon 3-2000 digital camera for the footage used. We used the video record option and recorded multiple shots in order to achieve some continuity and overall flow for our film. The camera was able to give us a better shot quality than other average cameras, and we were also able to add a focus pull just by twisting the lens. We also used a lavalier microphone that we purchased from Amazon, attached to a mobile phone in order to record the voiceover and have clear, crisp sound. This was much better than the original voiceover, which sounded muffled and unprofessional. Here is the example of the original voiceover.
Basically, I've noticed you in the past few months.
And this is an example of the new and improved one, using the lavalier.
Talk to her. It's your only chance. Go on.
In terms of software, we used Final Cut Pro to edit our opening sequence. This included chopping shots shorter using the blade tool, rearranging shots using the select tool, importing a soundtrack and sound effects, adding filter effects, idents, credits, and the stop and fast forward signs. This was essential to make our film visually pleasing and have it make sense. For the elevator scene, we used the Dream video effects on Final Cut Pro to make clear to the audience that the protagonist was daydreaming. Also, we used Photoshop to take out the white background of the stop and fast forward signs, using the quick selection tool and deleting the unwanted white background.
Back at the preliminary task, we feel that as well as having been progressed a lot since the start, we also feel that in some aspects since the practical we have realised our strengths and weaknesses. In the preliminary task, we were given set rules and told exactly what to do. However, in the practical there were no boundaries to what we could do, allowing us to be more creative due to the difference in the brief. To what we thought would be an advantage to be more creative was in fact a drawback, in the way that we had such high expectations for our film in the planning stage that in the end we couldn't live up to them. However, we have made a lot of progression since the preliminary task. Through the use of camera and editing, we can see that in the preliminary task, shortcuts were the most dominant cuts, connoting a build-up to a climax or an emphasis on something important in the scene. In the final film opening, we developed this to the next stage by including a cutting rhythm, which was parallel to the non-diegetic sound, creating an atmosphere of joyfulness and excitement for the audience. Therefore, ultimately trying to achieve a true representation of atmosphere in a conventional rom-com. We also showed progression through costume, which fell under mise-en-scène. In the preliminary task, no attention was given towards costume. We thought that this was quite important as it helped build characterization. Not only this, the audience were also able to identify with the characters more through binary opposition in our actors' costumes, which was more evident in our film opening as we created character profiles before filming, to which we had stuck to.